I'm here with one of the gurus of social media, Brian Solis. We are at the web, and the second day has just finished. Can you tell us what are the trends for 2011 in social media?
Wow, well, there's a lot of trends that some are going to sound very familiar and some will be new, but one of the biggest trends in social media is that we're going to continue to hit the mainstream, and not just people joining, not just people sharing on Facebook, but actually really embedding it into their lifestyle. That is going to be a big trend for 2011, and I think Facebook and Twitter and other big social networks and those startups and emerging products and services that hope to capture attention and users, we need that to happen, because the bigger the user base, the greater the opportunity for all of this. Now, one of the other trends is that we're going to see not only the numbers go up, but we're also going to have to start to see it impact our culture much more than we have today. I mean, mainstream culture. For example, what we share online is going to impact what we do and what we say in the real world. Now that's more maybe social science. From a technology standpoint, I think, we're here in the Pearl Trees booth, and I do believe that curation, 2011 is the year of curation. So we see Pearl Trees, we see Paperly, we see other services that are coming up that are helping users embrace services that allow them to capture information and share experiences. And that's the future of all of this. And one last thing is that there was a data point from Forrester Research that had said, 70% of all of the people on the social web just consume. But so if you think about all of the things we hear and see on social networking, it's people talking, it's people creating content. It's a very small minority, and so the reason that curation is important is because it's going to be the technology, the services that get that 70% to start to erode, because it makes it easier for them to create and share content.
I work in marketing and branding, and it's not only people who talk on social media, also brands use more and more social media. What is the trend there? And social media is about honesty, about authenticity, sometimes difficult for brands. Can you give us some insights on that?
Well, you're looking at decades of almost antisocial behavior, in the sense that they didn't have to be.
It's a very strong word, antisocial behavior.
It is, and I'm sorry, but it's very true though, because I spend all of my time now helping brands reconstruct not just around social media, but reconstruct their whole philosophy, their whole culture, their whole infrastructure, in order to be open, in order to be honest, in order to be transparent, and because they realize the importance. They're not structured that way today. They're structured in a top-down, controlled format to create stories, messages, and products and services, introduce it, and even in many cases, they don't even service their products. Someone else services their products. So it's a disconnect between brand and consumer, and they've done everything they could to minimize the costs associated with that. Social media forces them now to come closer, and that changes everything. And so for brands and businesses, I call this the socialization of business. Every division of a brand will have to socialize. It's not just marketing, right? If it might start in marketing, but the first thing that happens is they realize that they're inviting more conversations, and it's not just related to the marketing effort. Suddenly customers, suddenly potential employees. It's all now starting to socialize the activity outside, where they're going to have to restructure marketing, advertising, service, so that it can go both ways. So they can have a conversation, but also learn from it and adapt from it to keep them honest.
I've heard about you as an expert on social media. Are you yourself involved with any companies? Yeah?
Oh yeah. I actually have been in this social marketing as well as social business before it was social business, working with a lot of the people that we all know back in the 90s. So I started my company in '99 around this, so it's been quite some time. But
is it a company with an own business model, like in social media, or are you consulting?
It's a whole agency around social.
Okay.
And I would say this: there weren't as many customers then as there are now, especially as more brands are learning about this. But I do now. I started with a lot of emerging technology companies because they needed the creativity. They didn't have a lot of resources or money to spend, and they were willing to experiment. But over the years, I started to focus more on bigger brands, as well as politicians and government bodies and organizations, as well as arts organizations, celebrity here and there. But in really now where my work is focused is on what I call organizational transformation. So the agency is designed around creative, social creative as well as engagement and influence. And then another division, which has started about 3 years ago, is dedicated to organizational transformation, helping executives restructure the company around social.
You're based in the US. Like from my point of view, from most people's point of view, the tipping point was a little bit also like how Obama used social media for his elections. What could be, or in which field do you think there could be the next tipping point in that field?
Well, little secret, maybe some strong words, but you know, Obama's social media campaign was the best example of a highly celebrated one-way conversation. It wasn't two-way at all. It was used to increase donations, increase presence, and it worked marvelously. He got elected largely in part because of how social networks gave them the resources necessary to compete against formidable opponents. The next stage would be to look at that type of campaign and say, what would happen if we turned on the inbound stream? And really what that means is that we as people will be able to affect policy. We'll be able to actually have a democracy where we, the people, have control over the outcome of politics as well as our society. So at some point, whether they give it to us or not, that's the importance of social media. We're taking it. And so I would love to see an Obama campaign or a campaign like that actually leverage not the wisdom of the crowds, but the brilliance of the crowds.
Thank you, Brian, for this interview.